All right, so we're going to take a few minutes here to do a financial update. Greg Fenich is going to come up and do that. And who are the other people on the team right now?
We have
Scott Moore?
Darren,
Darren's not here today.
and Dale,
Ah, excellent.
and then Taryn, of course.
Yeah, and this is our finance team. And we really value a lot of intentionality and transparency in how we approach our finances here. We just, as of July 1, are our own sort of standalone institution. We are our own church, a part of the ELCA, which Kim talked about earlier. And we're being really careful to watch what's happening in our finances this year because it's kind of our first foray into the process. And part of what Greg is going to share with us is part of how we practice in together, so that we can be a community that is aware and knowledgeable of how we are functioning on a variety of levels. So this financial report is a part of that process. And come on up, Greg, and give us the good word.
So, first of all, thank you for allowing me this encore today. I didn't realize I was going to be 2 times up. And I know I was trying to think, how do I make finance exciting? Especially for people that don't like or don't care about numbers. But, we are going to be rebranded as money, so hopefully that will drive some excitement in the future. But this is really, to ground us all, our fiscal year is July 1st through June 30th. And so the period July 1st to September 30th was our first quarter. And so our second quarter, probably in January, you'll be having me up here again to talk about that. But, I put up there, God is generous with us, and we respond by intentionally living generous lives. And I want to take a moment because kind of starting out on our own is not easy, but your generosity this first quarter is overwhelming. It's much appreciated, and you'll see what I'm talking about when we get to the numbers. It's only 3 months, so it's not like we could predict the future, but if we have a quarter like this, we will continue to grow and remain strong as a church. And so with that, I'm going to walk through our income. We'll talk about our expense, kind of give you an overall look. Do want to touch on our assets and liabilities. People are like, you lost me there. Assets and liabilities. We'll get to it. And then I want to also talk about what's going on in giving, from giving options. We have some new things going on, but also some reminders. So this is our income, and we have it really in 4 buckets. You could see, again, the first column, the July to September, that's our actual. So at the bottom, you'll see we had a little over 88,600 in actuals against a budget of 78,000. So overall, we beat our income for the quarter by just under 11,000. Now that's great. However, what this doesn't show is that July and August, we were kind of behind, and so we didn't know how we were going to finish. And there's different reasons for that, because when we budgeted, we didn't have a lot of history, and we don't always know seasonality. We also know July and August, when the weather's great and the school's out, people want to take vacation. And so again, if people are not setting up recurring giving, but instead give when they come here, that can have an impact. However, in September, we also received a very large one-time gift. Now, I say one-time because we don't expect that particular gift to repeat, but we also know that throughout the year, those one-time gifts can come in. Greatly appreciated, but just want to give you an idea that if that gift did not come in September, we actually would have been behind in the general giving. And so as we continue through the next quarter and the next quarter and the next quarter, and you wonder, how can I help? Well, continue giving. We like that. But also, if you want to make it more predictable for us in finance, you could set up recurring. That helps us to have the predictability, and also it can help you if you sometimes forget or want to have some own predictability of yourself. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. But so the general giving, that's where the large gift and any recurring giving that you guys participate in would show up. We also have our church building use income. So I think most of you know that we have other groups using the church throughout the week, and so we get income from that. And then also the parsonage next door, that's rental income. So overall, a solid quarter for income. And so now we're going to move into the expenses. These are the categories that we look at from expense. There's a lot of detail behind them. If you're really interested, come November 5th to our next Finance Committee meeting, and I'll be happy to walk you through it. But you'll see the negative in the far right is actually good. We're under budget. And so you can see all up on our expenses, just under budget by about $2,800. And then if I take it line by line, so the pastor line, that's where Pastor Sarah's expenses go. We had some underspend in some continuing education as well as connecting ministry. And again, that could be seasonal. We don't expect that necessarily to be savings at the end of the year. It's just when it's being spent. Staff, that would be the amount of monies that are paid out to the staff, as well as in this case, for our custodial services. And we know, for those of you that volunteered for helping Jason clean, that we didn't always have that happening, and so there were some savings in the custodial staff, as well as the timing of our labor and industry payment, our L&I payment. So again, there's where some seasonality. When we budgeted, we didn't always know when payments were going to be due, and so you see that benefit. Benevolence, that's really just a calculation of general giving. So we were over about $10,098, and so when you take 10% of that, that's going to drive our benevolence actual, and that's the money that we would pay to the synod. And so if for some reason in the future our income is below, you'll see that number below. In the office space, we had a couple things going on there that I wanted to share. So we were actually higher than budget when it comes to our professional fees. And when I say professional fees, that was really our legal and accounting fees related to separating from Holy Spirit, as well as we had an annual mobile fee. But we had that offset in savings or underspend in office supplies and postage. So all up, we were over, but I wanted to share with you kind of the factors that were driving it. Building and grounds, you will see we're underspent there for the quarter. Again, couple things going on there. We made the decision to install ductless heating air unit in portions of the church here. That helps us in reducing energy costs in the future. We also had a large insurance payment, and again, timing. We know we have to pay insurance, but we don't always know when it's going to be due, and so that's something as we get into next year we'll take in consideration. However, that was offset by the property tax for the parsonage as well as the King County fees. Again, we owe those. Those will be paid in Q2. And then last is the ministry programs, and so as you are familiar, we have different ministry programs. We have the worship and arts. We have the programs for the children, etc. We had overspend in worship and arts, and this was due to the annual fee for copyrights. So next year we'll know when it's going to be paid, and we can budget for that differently. So all up, you could see that we did have underspend. We had some ins and outs. And this is our, as far as how we manage across the remaining 3 quarters, but I wanted to make sure you guys were aware of the drivers and that there are people looking at this in order to control it. And so if you go to the next slide. So if you look at our total income that we talked about, as well as total expense, our net operating income is just under $13,500 as far as being over budget, which is a great thing. But remember, I talked about that large gift. If that large gift did not come in, and we were running September just like we had July and August, our net operating income would be less. So the next slide I want to go into is our assets and liabilities. Hopefully you can see that. I put some little words in there, but on the asset side, think about that as items owned by Salt House that have value and for which money was paid. You'll have the current assets, the first 3 line items. Current, thinking about, is very liquid. It's, we can spend it tomorrow. The fixed assets are those things like the building, not only for the church, but the parsonage. They have value, but it's not like we can turn around and get the money out of them tomorrow. So from a current asset perspective, you'll see we have a healthy amount in checking. We have savings and then security deposits. Now, I did want to make sure that people that were here at the beginning of July and when we were voting on different matters, we as a congregation voted to gift $140,000 to Holy Spirit. That will be happening in Q2, and that will be coming out of our checking. So that $406,000 is going to go down by $140,000. We'll look at our other expenses or coming up, and we will look at rebalancing between our checking and savings so that we can get better interest rates on any remaining amounts. As far as liabilities, that's what we owe. You can see it's a great thing. We owe less than $5,000 as of the end of September. And those primarily related to payroll and other. And it's not like we aren't paying them. This is more of an accounting treatment on how you record and accrue for monies that are due. And so that would be something that you would expect to see every month, every quarter. So hopefully you guys are feeling good about Q1, just like the Finance Committee. Want you guys to know that we are committed as a Finance Committee to continue to look at our finances and share with you transparently what's going on. Again, your generosity in giving has been wonderful, and I would like to go to the next slide because there's some stuff going on there. This is a little small, but on the far right, you'll see the typical online texting and joy jar. Okay, I was waiting for that. Yeah, I didn't know if it was just me or shout out, but it worked. But I wanted to make sure that as you think about the way you give, sometimes you may like, well, should I give online? Should I text? Do I drop in the joy jar? Okay, there are some fees, minor, but the fees that if I can share these later, but for ACH transaction, that's 25 cents, credit or debit, 30 cents plus 2.3 cents or percent per transaction. Now, you do have the opportunity to pay that when you do your donation, or you can have Salt House pay it. It's up to you. But there's something new. I guess there's probably some Amazon shoppers in here. So we have now Amazon Smile, which is another way. So when you're purchasing, and Amazon Smile allows you to identify a charity that you would like certain proceeds of your transaction to go to. Salt House is now part of that. So if you haven't used Amazon Smile, it's another option. The other thing under construction, I don't know if you could read it, it's employee matching. So some of us work for companies where there's employee matching. We are looking at getting that set up for Salt House. We did have it under Holy Spirit, but with the changeover, we have to kind of reestablish that. The key to know about employee matching, if that's the route you go, and we love it, is that those are generally restricted to a project or a focus area. So it wouldn't be toward the operating expenses that I just spoke about. It would be more for our outreach, which when we look at what Salt House wants to do, what we want to do as a church, those outreach funds are just as important. I think that's it when it comes to giving. Again, thank you. We had a very good Q1. Look forward to working with you throughout the rest of the fiscal year, which is, I know I just said the new word, fiscal year. That's the same as July 1st through the end of June. And again, your contributions are appreciated. Any questions? Yes. Oh, it's like I didn't set her up, honestly. Recommended would be if you can, whatever method you choose, say online or text or other, if you could set it up recurring, that's awesome because that gives us a predictable income flow, if you will, of giving. But we know that's not always possible for folks. And so, you know, the other idea would be if you are giving but you don't want to set it up recurring is, you know, try to think about how you can spread it out evenly throughout the year. I mean, the one-time gifts are great, and you know, I kind of do that sometimes with other organizations because I'm like, okay, October at Microsoft is the month of give, so I just start giving to all these different organizations. But and they appreciate that as well. But to your point, a recurring payment setup, and if you had that under the old, I don't know if Taryn was that Planning Central, the old recurring, then planning. So if you had it, if you haven't had it set up yet in Planning Center and have questions, Taryn is able to help you with that. But great question.
And to speak to the two different ways, there's a significant difference in fees. As Greg mentioned, there's a significant difference in fees between ACH and credit/debit. So if you were weighing those two options, the ACH is preferred because it's only a quarter versus sometimes like $13, $15. So.
Okay. Any other questions? Again, thank you for your generosity.